G'day, Andrew Murray here from the Apartment Specialist, talking about apartment renovations. What can you do and what do you have to do? Now, apartment renovations come under sort of three categories that you need to be aware of. Three what you call acts. Okay, so you have the Unit Titles Act 2010. That's what governs how apartments are run. Then you've got the Building Act 2004. So that's to do with structure and ventilation and things like that. Then you've got the Resource Management Act. Now that's often referred to as RMA from 1991, which is all about how we use our resources as New Zealanders. So to give you an idea, basically a lot of people just assume that you can do anything to your apartment as long as you don't aesthetically affect other owners or structurally, i.e. you don't knock down a wall or a pillar that could affect the structure of the building, or you don't, for example, paint your deck pink when all the other decks are grey and that's going to, affect the values of the building. Now that's actually not true. It's a lot more complex than that. So when you're dealing with the Unit Titles Act, you've also got to adhere to the body corporate rules. For example, in the building that I live in, you can only have Venetian blinds. You can't have curtains or anything like that. So when you're doing up your apartment, you should know that you should be aware of that. Otherwise, you're going to get asked to take them down. Also, things like if you have a one-bedroom, we won't let you create that into a two-bedroom, even though it's quite large, because we don't want extra people living in a complex. So the body corporate rules are also very important that you need to go through, and that is every building that is specific. Okay. Then number two, when you're dealing with the Building Act, that one's pretty obvious. Obviously, it comes down to the structural side of it. You can't structurally affect the building negatively. Or the other one is ventilation. For example, if you're going to put in a second room, you have to have ventilation and the right amount of light getting into that room. Otherwise, it's illegal for it to be a room where you can have people sleeping in it. It's okay for a study. So you have different rules and things like that. Then you have the RMA, or Resource Management Act, and that's when it comes down to. This is when it comes down to what I'd call annoying, but is a necessary evil. So that's controlling what we do with our apartments. You can't take a 60 square metre apartment and turn it into a 4-bedroom. That would be inhumane underneath the current district plan and RMA, or Resource Management Act. So it's about in those situations, if you have building consent and you're knocking down walls and all that kind of thing, you should ring up the council and get and ask their approval, and get what's called a building consent exempt form. So that means you don't have to apply for consent to do that work. That's pretty easy. And then with resource management, you need to also ring up the council, tell them what you're doing, and seeing if you're going to need consent from obviously the council to do what you need to do, whether that's to put in another room, make alterations to the unit. And one thing to be aware of is if you have a heritage apartment, this is when the Resource Management Act can become quite what I'd call anal is probably the best word, but it's about keeping our heritage like it is. For example, I own a building where the inside of the apartment is regarded as heritage as well as the outside. So you have to be very aware of affecting what they call the inner fabric, and so I had to get resource consent to do modifications to that unit. But yeah, it's a little bit more complicated than you think. The best thing to do is obviously consult your body corporate, or if you're going to buy an apartment, put in a condition that it's going to be approved by the body corporate. Then B, ring up the planning desk at the council and ask for their advice from the building side as well as the resource management side, and then that puts you in pretty safe, because you may be able to do stuff without people knowing now, and that may seem the easy way, but when you go to sell your apartment and things, people get a LIM report or things like that, and modifications have been done and they're not showing up on the plans of the unit, it's going to become pretty obvious, and that could affect your sales price hugely, or worst case, you could be made to put it back how it was originally. I hope that helps. If you have any more questions about apartment modifications, please let me know, and specific buildings that you need to be aware of. I hope this has been helpful. Andrew Murray, Apartment Specialist. Cheers. Bye.